Thank you so much, folks. It's lovely to be here. Now I know I've only got 10 minutes, and I've got quite a lot to cover in 10 minutes. So I'm just gonna jump straight in, if that's all right. I've got a very different business to do. So I'm going to take you back. Well, first of all, just to introduce myself. My name is Claire Timbrell. I am a single mum to Eddie, who is coming up to 5 years old now. I'm a dog mum to little Lucy the Whippet, who is coming up to 15 years old now. And as you know, I'm also known as the Paint-Along Lady, which I will get to, but I'm actually going to take it back about 9 years or so to my first ever business, which was something very different to the Paint-Along Lady. I had a crazy idea that I wanted to set up an escape room. Do some of you know what an escape room is? You may have seen them, but essentially I wanted to take it up to a corporate level for a team building sort of situation. And in this escape room, there would be a control room where managers, coaches, team leaders could watch their team go through the escape room and sort of assess where they are in terms of their personality, characters, and whether they make good team leaders, etc. So an escape room on a corporate level. To do that, I successfully raised £150,000 from 5 angel investors, which was no mean feat, actually, quite a hard thing to do. But after getting that successful £150,000 investment, I was able to take on an old nightclub, which, interestingly, I stumbled out of many a time during my time at university. But I took that nightclub on and changed it into what was then the MacGuffin Project, an escape room for corporate team building experiences. We had quick success and we grew very quickly over a short space of time. We had some high-profile visitors join us, including the London Irish rugby team. We had Bournemouth AFC who came in and brought their whole team to assess how they all worked together. We won quite a few awards. We grew up to about 12 members of staff. And the next stage in the business plan was to franchise that business. And we had 3 further venues planned over the space of 2 years. So things were going great. But sadly, unfortunately, 2 of my 5 angel investors had different plans. And I think I had quite an unusual experience with this. If anybody is thinking of angel investment, I'm sure this doesn't happen very often. I was unlucky. But 2 of my 5 angel investors had plans to secretly and quietly push the business into administration in order to buy the business out from underneath me and pretty much buy it for next to nothing, which turned into a bit of a legal battle, as you can imagine, and I fought tooth and nail to make sure that they didn't buy that business from out underneath me. Unfortunately, we were already in administration at that point, but following a long period of frantic calls and emails, I was able to sell the business to a global brand and not to those 2 angel investors. However, I and my partner had both invested our own houses into this business and everything I owned and he owned. And sadly, that's all we were left with. So we packed up everything into our van and we were forced to move back in with a family member, and we lived in their attic, basically, whilst we tried to get ourselves back on our feet. As you probably imagine, during that period, my mental health wasn't healthy, shall we say, and I hit a very dark place at that point, very, very low. Not only were we left with nothing, we were also left with a huge amount of debt, somewhere I'd never been before. So I picked up a paintbrush, which is something I've done all throughout my life. I enjoy painting, I love painting. I find it hugely therapeutic, and it was the only thing I could do at that point. However, I was still in a financial pickle, shall we say. So I knew I needed to make some money, and I decided I would start trying to sell paintings. It was quite a simple plan. I didn't know how I was going to get on. But I went out and I did craft fairs, I did art shows, I entered competitions, I begged hairdressers, beauticians, salons, restaurants, hotels, anywhere where I could pop my paintings on a wall and hopefully somebody buys it. Unfortunately, I wasn't very good at it. I didn't sell many paintings, and I think the worst thing was I just wasn't enjoying that. That was a horrible place, and it turned something I was quite passionate about, enjoyed doing, into something I really wasn't enjoying. The selling part of it. However, I did like painting great big murals. That was something I really got into, and I liked that. It meant I was outside, I was talking to people again, which was a big part of what I like doing. And this particular mural, I had a little girl approach me whilst I was painting it. And she asked me, how do you paint those daisies? Such a simple question. But I sat with her and I explained, just broke it down. Just a few shapes, lines, and some colour, that's all it is. And the next day, that little girl came back to me with the painting that she'd done that night. And it was my light bulb moment where I realised, actually, this is what I want. I want to get other people painting, and I want people to experience the therapeutic, kind of the benefits that I had just encountered myself, having just recovered from quite a life-changing moment. So I took on a little space in this beautiful building. This is the old town hall in Timbrell. Beautiful, beautiful building. I had a tiny little studio at the back. It was a lovely building. It was a very old building. And I had started to build up maybe 3, 4, 5 people for a weekly painting class. But being an old building, the boiler was very often on the blink. So one week, the boiler was gone. We had no heating. It was the sort of darkest depth of winter, far too cold to ask these people to paint with me for a couple of hours. And so I decided that we were going to pack everything up and we would pop a couple of doors down to the pub. And we would do the painting class from the pub. And as you can see, everybody was relatively happy about it. We enjoyed. We did the class from the pub. And then the following week, sadly, boiler still on the blink, we went back to the pub. Absolutely fine. Okay. Third week, the boiler was fixed. Everything's absolutely fine. But we went back to the pub. At that point, we realised that actually there were a lot of people that were coming to the pub and just seeing what we were doing and more interested in kind of joining in that sort of remit, that environment. People were more inclined to give it a go. And also the pub landlord was pretty happy about it. So 2 weeks in a row now, he'd had midweek custom when actually it's usually a relatively quiet pub. And we were buying drinks, we were buying food. So as a result, then there was other venues that were getting wind of it and asking me to come in and do some painting classes with them. We started looking at evenings rather than this, which was during the daytime. As a result, then there was a school teacher that was part of that. She then asked me to come into her school and do school paint-alongs. So then we had quite a few schools we were working with. We built this up to corporates and offices. My background before all of this was corporate. So it was nice to be back into an office. And we were doing conferences. At this point, I'd picked up a conference for 150 people in Cardiff painting a flamingo. And that was just mind-blowing for me. It was fantastic. So things had really got momentum and starting to work out a little bit better. Then, of course, lockdown happened. So all of those things which were taken off, conferences, classrooms, the schools, the hotels, bars, restaurants, they all pretty much closed overnight. So we were at, again, another sort of stumbling block. So I did the only thing I really could do, I guess, was just take everything online. Just set those videos, those cameras up, and do live paint-alongs. So during lockdown, every Friday at 4 o'clock, I still remember it now, I would log on to Facebook Live, I would paint a picture, I'd tell people what I'm doing. If they followed along, that was great, but I didn't know what to make of it. A few months in, perhaps, we actually, at that point, started seeing some crazy numbers. And during one point of lockdown, my Facebook Live videos reached 1.8 million people. Yeah, still blows my mind now. Thank you. And people were starting to paint all over the world, which was phenomenal and something it just really shocked me, and it started to get a bit bonkers. But then things became even more bonkers because I had, of course, sorry, I got emotional then, see the picture of it? I had my little boy. And then that's when stuff got really real, I think, because at that point, I realised I needed this business to succeed, not just for me, but for him this time. And I couldn't afford things to go wrong this time. And I knew at that point as well, it was just me and him. So I decided, let's get that studio back. So we took on another little studio. And as you can see, I covered it with daisies, which was a little nod to that little girl who changed the direction without even knowing. And we started again. I keep saying we, it was just me. I started doing paint-alongs. This was in the Gower Heritage Centre, for anyone who knows it. And we started doing paint-alongs, which was great. Things were building up again. However, things weren't meant to last, because a couple of weeks after moving in, we had not just one, but 2 floods. And unfortunately, that took the majority of my paintings and some of the bigger bits of kit as well. But it's fine, we move on. That led to me then looking at other venues quite quickly, because I had events that needed fulfilling. And I was really, really grateful, overwhelmed, when the iconic Mumbles Pier said that I could base myself there. Which was fantastic, because it was an iconic building, it's a very family-focused place. I could start developing the family paint-alongs. Up until this point, I'd really been looking at grown-up paint-alongs. So the family events really started taking off, and that meant the schools would start picking up once again. Now, if you guys are local, I'm sure some of you are, you'll know what's coming next. Yeah, the pier then sadly burnt down.
Is it everywhere you go?
Yeah. It is a bit concerning, isn't it? Yeah.
Blood and fire.
Well, funny you should say that. I don't actually know how, but I did manage to find another venue that would work with me after that, which was quite a surprise, as you say. But Founders & Co. took me on. You may have heard of Founders & Co. based in Wine Street. Took me on 3 years ago, and I've got to be, I think, the first venue that got it and kind of understood where we're coming from. This isn't an art lesson. This isn't a painting class. This is, you come for a drink and you leave with a painting. You come for a social night out and you leave with a piece of art. That's it. You know, the painting came second to it. And they got it from the get-go. So we have continued to do events there every Tuesday and Thursday night, and that has led on to other venues, other opportunities. I won't go on too much because I know the time is short, but last year I released my first ever paint-along book, which is a storybook where every time you meet a new character, you can scan a QR code, you paint that picture with me. By the end of the book, you've got 6 of the characters. I've got my online shop where I sell a range of paint, brushes, canvases, merchandise, all of which I use at events. And of course, the membership platform, which is the video, online video paint-alongs, where we've still got people joining in across the world to paint, which is incredible. Upcoming podcast YouTube series called Painting with Pals, where I'm going to have guests in who are painting with me whilst I found out more about their story, which I can't wait to do. And I guess my proudest moment, and my weirdest moment as well, when I think back, is filling this very arena 6 times doing a paint-along, which we've done now, and we'll be back again this year. So yeah, there's a lot to cover there in 10 minutes. That's like 9 years worth with 3 disasters, 1 global pandemic and a baby, all into 10 minutes. But I guess I want to be able to say, if you're going into business, it's wild. You know, it's a pretty wild ride. But if you're fortunate enough that you have found something that you are passionate enough, you want to make a business out of it, then just buckle up and enjoy the ride, in honesty, because it's just great fun. And what I will say is never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, give up, because the best bit is usually just around the corner. So that's it. Thanks, guys. Thank you.